Hi everyone, welcome to my video A-Level Economics Tuition. In the subjects of economics, we have one topic under interest rate, whereby how interest rate actually affect the level of economy. So today we are going to use a real life example to illustrate to students on how interest rate can actually affect our life as well as the overall economy. So a few days ago or a weeks ago, we come across this US bank they call the Silicon Valley Bank and collapsed. So what happened was that for this bank itself, it was reported that they have invested heavily into the bond market. So as we know that rising interest rate will actually discount all futures cash flow, and a higher interest rate will cause the value of the investment instruments, in this case, which is actually the bonds, to reduce in their value. So, so how does the rising interest rate actually cause a reduction in bond value? So I have just come out a simple uh, calculation to show everyone. So assuming if a bond were to pay a $1 coupon at a rate interest rate of 1%, which we divided by 100 is 0.01. So a $1 coupon when discounted by 1%, we actually get a bond value at $100. So as we know that a few years ago, interest rate was actually very low. So which is actually at as low as 1%. So when Silicon Bank actually have invested in their in this bond instrument, they actually have bought it at a price based on the discounted value of low interest rate few years back. So if let's say interest rate were to increase by 1%, so instead of 0.01, we actually go to 0.02, right? Given the same coupons of $1, the bond value actually reduced by half. And right now, interest rate is actually standing at about close to 4%. So which means to say, when $1, the same amount of coupon, discounted by 0.04, the bond value actually reduced to $25. So you can imagine that a few years back when the bank actually invested in the bond market at $100, so as at today, the value of their investment in the bond instrument actually depreciated by almost like 75%. So when the bank actually reported a heavy loss in their bond investment, this created a widespread fear. So what happened is that all their depositor actually rushed to them for massive withdrawal. So as a result, the bank have a difficulty to uh, pay out all this withdrawal, and because of the massive withdrawal itself, it caused the bank to collapse. All right. So, what is the impact on this uh, collapse of banks to the economy? So, when we actually look at the impact itself, first of all, we have to understand that, like what we mentioned, increase in interest rate, right? You will lead to a fall in theory, it will lead to a fall in investment and a fall in consumption. Right? So of course, when you have these two components, which represent a very important components of the economy, that will eventually lead to a decrease in aggregate demand, right? So when aggregate demand fall, given that the aggregate supply remain unchanged, then we will have a reduce in national income as well as a reduction in this employment level. All right. So basically, that is a fear of the economy, and when we have a rising interest rate. So what happened is that in this case, we have a Silicon Bank. Okay. So for banks itself, all the banks will have to maintain a reserve ratio with the central bank. That means every $1 of deposit they receive from the public, they actually have to put a certain amount with the central bank. So every bank is actually doing that. So, but of course, when all individual bank when they do have excess cash, they do bank with each other. So for example, we have Silicon Bank, we have another bank called Bank A, and another bank called Bank B, right? So Bank A actually deposit money in Silicon Bank as well or lend money to Silicon Bank. So Bank B will also could be doing the same thing to Bank A. So when we actually have Silicon Bank that collapse, right? So in this case, the situation will result in Bank A, they may or may not get back their deposit or loan to Silicon Bank, right? So this is one problem. So when the second bank or Bank B, they actually put money with Bank A, Bank B also get worried because Bank B will also be thinking that the amount of money that Bank A going to lose with Silicon Bank, eh, will Bank A also not able to pay back the deposit and loan to Bank B as well, right? So because of all this fear that resulted due to the collapse of Silicon Bank, it actually uh, create a decrease in availability of credit, which this uh, terms is actually mentioned in our economic text, availability of credit. So when banks actually have fear of putting money in each other, uh, what you call peers, so what they do is that they actually will try to claw back all their money from every individual bank. So when that happen, right, banks will actually have lesser money to lend out. So it will actually result in a credit crunch. When bank have lesser money to lend out, right, then it actually resulted in a decrease in the availability of credit, meaning bank will actually reduce their lending to the public or to private firms. So when public and private firms have a lesser, not able to borrow as much money from the bank, then it will result a decrease in investment. It also result a decrease in consumption. So rising interest rate will have an impact on investment and consumption, and the decrease in availability of credit will also have an impact on uh, investment and consumption, which all will lead to a decrease in AD, and at the same time, and that will actually result in a decrease in national income and employment level. Right. So this is how we see this saga of Silicon Bank collapse on the effect of the economy. So when we actually use a real life example to illustrate to student, a student will be able to understand it more easily. However, if you still have difficulty in learning your subjects of economy and you need help, what you can do is you can actually come to my link to understand more about our tuition and as well as to book an appointment or time slot with us to conduct tuition with you. Right? Thank you for watching our video. Goodbye.